Welcome back to the channel. My name is Tronage, and today we're going to be talking about the Gemfan Moonlight Props. Want to take a deeper dive look at these? Then you're going to have to stick around. Gemfan Moonlight Props. These are the V2s, baby. Got them in my hands. I'm so curious to try these out to see what's involved with these. I was actually thrilled to have received these in my FPV crate for February 2021. If you missed that unboxing, you can check the link up in the corner there. But I figured I wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive look into these because you know, you watch like the video that they have out for assembly and they try to make it look all easy and quick and fast and is like, you know, lickety split, no problem. But it looks a little tedious, especially now seeing it in real life, how tiny these little parts are. So we're gonna try to do more of a real life demonstration of what it is to put these together, especially myself having never done it before, learning along as we go. What we're also going to be doing is I have two sets of batteries. We have Energizer battery and we have the PK cell batteries. These are the, you know, El Cheapos, and Energizers like the brand name batteries. Why do we have separate batteries? Well, because these do not include batteries. So keep that in mind when you make your purchases for these props. They do not include batteries and you will have to get them separately. And I would appreciate if you do purchase batteries. Down in the description down below, there will be affiliate links to both of these batteries so that you can make a purchase that will help support this channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra, by the way. It just helps me out, costs you the same. These batteries are actually relatively cheap. I think you get like about 100 of them for like 12 bucks, something like that. You can check the price down below. And the Energizer batteries are a little bit more expensive, obviously, because they're brand name. So I really want to see, is there a difference between them? So we're going to measure, you know, weight to see if their weight is any different. We're going to see how long they last compared to each other and all that fun stuff. But before we do any of that, make sure you slam that subscribe button. While you're at it, hit that bell icon. It makes finding my videos a whole heck of a lot easier. It helps support this channel and it keeps you in the know when I post content like this. So make sure you go and do it. And while you're at it, hit that like icon, man. Why not? It doesn't hurt nothing. Just hit that like icon. All right. So why don't I bring you all up in close first and let's just, you know, unbag this, take a look at what's included and start to see really what assembly looks like. So come on in. All right, so here we go. We have our Gemfan Moonlight V2 pack that I received from the FPV crate at February 2021. So we'll go through and unbag this in a moment. I also wanted to just show you the two batteries that we will be testing today. We have the PK cell version and the Energizer cell. They will be links in the description, affiliate links. So please use those if you're gonna go pick these up. We'll be comparing these shortly. So let's take those away for a moment and let's just get into the nitty-gritty of the Moonlight. So first up, we do have the instructions, which are printed on a rather small piece of paper, but it's, I guess, so it can fit in the bag. Goes through a little bit of diagram and a little bit of the text here as well, how to do that. So I'll be referring to these as we assemble. We then have the props themselves. Okay, so we have 4 props. And you can already see the part of the prop that has these like little reflective things. And I don't know, are they embedded? I don't feel anything on the surface. So they must be either embedded or not quite sure how they're getting those in there. But it's only on the one blade. So the way this works is the LED is going to be housed in the hub along with the batteries. It's going to shine an LED down this blade, and these little reflecting points are going to be what kind of light up. And as it spins, it's going to look like the whole thing is a disc of color, even though it's only on one blade. So when you first turn it on, they're not spinning. It's going to look kind of weird. But once they spin up, it'll look like the full prop is illuminated. So we have 4 of those. And then we have some other goodies in here. So we have the little copper parts, little copper tape insert things as well as the battery removal tool, which suspiciously looks a lot like the SIM card removal tool for like iPhones and stuff. And I have a sneaky suspicion that's all that really is just a SIM card removal tool. We have the actual LED items that actually do the shining. And I think there's only 3 in here, which makes me a little concerned. Oh, no, there's the 4th one on the back. Because I only saw 3 LEDs, there's the 4th one here. So we're all good, we got 4. And then we have the little cover plates that go on the top of it. Let's just do some weights first and foremost. So let me open up the scale, take that little lid off, turn this on. So just the prop with nothing in it, no batteries, no anything, is 3.8 grams. Then if you put the little cover plate on it, it doesn't seem to weigh much of anything. And you put one of these little LEDs in there. If I can just get one. They're like wafer thin. That like, okay, we're up to a little bit more. And then it's gonna take 4 of these parts, because each battery needs 2 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're at 4.2 grams without the batteries included, okay? And now let's do some batteries. So first we're gonna do the PK cells. Let's take a look at what they come out to be. And remember, as I mentioned, it is 2 batteries per prop. So here's 1, 2. So we're at 4.6 grams for the PK cell. Take these away for a moment now. And now we're gonna check the Energizer, see if there's any difference there. That's 1. And that's 2. They are 4.7 for that set. All right, so now let's see what's actually involved with assembly. All right, so before we start really digging deep, I want to take a look at these instructions here because there is a little area that's wrong or inaccurate. So I want to address that first because I shot this through and got kind of confused and I wanted to address that. But the problem is that this paper is so tiny that I blew it up. So this way we can actually see kind of what's going on here. So here's the issue. So these are the copper plates that we're going to take a look at in a moment. And if you see here how it has these tabs on here, this side graphic is correct, where the spring tabs have these little tabs on this side. If you look, this is sort of mirror image, where the tab is at the bottom, the tab is on the bottom. But the reality is if you took this tab and turned it around to put it over here, this little tab would rotate to the top. So this graphic here, this portion is not correct. So if the battery's alignment is correct, putting the spring-loaded parts towards the middle is correct, but these little tabs, how it connects to the disc LED section, that's not correct. But let's look at what's going on here just so you can understand how this is functioning. So first we have this part here, which is where the meat and the potatoes are. We have the LED on this side, some connections, and a little switch at the top. So let's draw that out real quick. We have the little switch at the top, a little, I don't know, whatever. And then at the bottom, we have the little LED. And the way it works is the LED has a wire that comes out and connects to here, and a wire that comes out and connects to here. And the switch has a wire that comes out and connects to here, and a wire that comes out and connects to here. Then we have these little copper plates that we're slipping in here. And if we follow this pattern as being the correct way it should be, we have one copper plate on the left side that's connecting here with that little tab. And then we have another copper plate on this side that connects here with that tab. That's what we have here. That's correct. This side is going to be a copper plate on this side that connects to the top here, and a copper plate on this side that connects over here like that. That's how this should be laid out. And the reason is because we have to look at battery polarity, because if you screw this up and you put the batteries in wrong, it will not work. So first and foremost, the thing to remember is little button batteries, they basically look like this from the side. There's a little like, you know, that's like the profile of a button battery. Now, normally, if this was like a AA battery, you associate this little nib part for being the positive and the flat bottom part. Like if this was a AA, like let's just, so there's no confusion, let's do like a AA. A AA would look like this, and this would be your positive and this would be your negative. But when it comes to button batteries, it's not the case. This little nibby part is actually the negative side, and the flat part that's solid, that's your positive side. So first of all, make sure that you have this way configured when you think about how to put these batteries in, not the traditional AA method. And following this picture, we want to make sure we have the positive over here and the negative over here. And as well, we want the negative to the outside, so the negative would be over here and the positive would be over here. And that's how we want to set this up. Positives are going to point towards the middle, which is the flat part of the batteries, both towards the center. And the nibs, which are the negative side, should be both pointing out. And when you insert the copper plates, this is the side that'll have the little spring cutout. This is the side that'll have the little spring cutout. So basically that's the correction here, because you see you have the spring cutout, the spring cutout. It's just these little tabs are on the wrong sides. There's no copper plates that look like this in the pack. So just make sure you follow this picture and the batteries and just put them in here the same way and the batteries the same way, and you'll be fine. So now with that being said, let's do it for real. All right, so let's zoom in here tight so we can really see what we got going on here. So here's what we're gonna need. We're gonna need one prop. We're going to need one of these little LED disc things. We're going to need one of these little caps. We're going to need two of the copper tabs that have the little spring punch out. And we're going to need two of the copper tabs that are solid. And we're going to need two batteries. So here is the two batteries. And as I mentioned, this would be the positive side, the side that's just solid. And the side with the little bump, this is your negative side. So make sure you take that into account when you are inserting these batteries. Now, for size reference, we are going to be working with things that are very tiny. So for my viewers in the United States, here is a quarter. To give you a size reference to see how tiny these things actually are that you're going to be working with. It is not big at all. It is very tiny. And for those who are maybe international, here is a ruler with both inches and, let me move this out of the way, with both inches and millimeters. And as you can see, everything is pretty darn tiny when it comes to this configuration. But obviously, you're trying to shove everything you need into this little area of the hub of the prop. Now, here's how we go ahead and configure this. So first and foremost, you want to find which of the three blades of your prop has the little reflective things in the prop. That's going to be the side where the LED is going to shine on. So obviously here, we're going to push this pointed towards me. And we're going to take this little LED disc thing, which seems very delicate to handle. I'm going to use my tweezer to pick it up, actually, because I don't want to screw anything up here. So if you want to take a closer look at this, let me see if I can get, I mean, it is very tiny and delicate. So what's on here, this is the little switch that I mentioned earlier up here. And then down here, that is the LED. So the way this is going to work is we're going to take that LED, and there's a little slot in this hub. So if you look at this hub, you can see there's 3 slots. There's a slot right here for the LED to go in. There's a slot here and a slot here where the batteries are gonna go in. And then there's the hole in the center where the shaft for the motor will go. So we take this and we're gonna slip this into that little slot there that's by the prop side that has the reflector things. Now, it does not seem to want to go in very good, like it's tight, and it's offering me some resistance, which is making me wonder if I have it in right. Okay, I see the problem here, and we're gonna have to get a little trimmer. I'm gonna show you what's going on. Okay, so here is what is happening. Let's bring this in real quick here. So the little tab, so you got the circle, and then there's like the tab that comes off. What's happening is right now, I guess from manufacturing, there's a little bump of plastic there and a little bump of plastic there. My guess is that when these are produced, another one is sitting here like this to save on waste. And then another one would be sitting like here. You get what I'm trying to say? Like they line up all these little tabs all in the center, and there's some sort of connector that's between them that gets cut, but it's not cut straight. There's a little bump out that comes out of it. And that's what's making it a little too wide to fit into the compartment. And I don't know, I'm gonna try to hold it up against this black background of my snipper. It's right there that I'm pointing at is where that little bump is. So with these flush cut trimmers, I'm just gonna take off the tiniest of tiny amounts to make it straight so it'll slip in without crunching up. I'm not cutting anything where there's like the little traces. I'm just cutting the little plastic to make it nice and straight. Same thing on this side. There's a tiny, tiny little thing. I mean, it's the littlest of little things, but it's enough to make it not slip in comfortably. And I did not want to force anything. Okay, now we go back in and we're going to slip it into that slot, and now it should just slip in no problem, I hope. Yes, it definitely slipped in a lot better with that tiny little trim off. So now you can see what we have here. We have the little piece stuck in and it's standing up still, but that's how you insert it. So if you run into problems, these are very delicate. So if it give you resistance, take it, like, get a magnifying glass or something and look at it. And if there's a little stub of plastic, just trim that off a little bit and then it'll slip in perfectly. So there's 2 holes at the top and 1 hole in the bottom, and we're gonna line those up. There's 2 pins at the top here and 1 pin at the bottom. I know it's hard to see because it's all clear, but basically you're just gonna take this thing and fold it down, and you're gonna make sure that those pins all line up and everything is happy. There we go. So now you can see I have it all set up so that it's sitting on top of those pins. So now that we got that in there, now we got to put our copper plates in there. So the trick with these are just making sure, again, we want the spring ones to be towards the center, and we want the flat ones to be towards the outside. And we want to make sure those itty bitty little ears that stick out. So here's one of these copper plates. Let me get this into focus. So here's one of those copper plates, and you see right there, there's a little ear sticking out right there. See it sticking out? It's very small, but it is sticking out. You want that to point towards that battery compartment for both of them. All right, so just like in this picture, one's gonna be at the top, one's gonna be at the bottom, but they both have to point in, not out. So just make sure that those little tabs are pointing towards the battery compartment. So this one is one of the spring ones. So we're gonna put it in, and it's gonna go with that tab towards the bottom. And it's gonna go into this slot as such, like that. Okay, and then you push it all the way in. And then the next one is going to be a flat one without the spring cutout. And you're going to put that little tab towards the top and on the outside. And you push it all the way in. All right. And then we repeat the process on this side. We're going to take one of the spring tabs. We're going to have the little tab that sticks out of it near the top. Like so. Okay. And then push it all the way in. And then the flat one, without any tab, without any spring, will go on the outside with the tab towards the bottom. Like that. And you push it all the way in. Now, in theory, we are now situated. Now we still have to put our batteries in there. So over here, I have my PK cell batteries. And remember, the flat side, so in this example here, this is your positive side, the flat side, and this side with the little nib, that's your negative. So we want both positives to point towards the middle. We want both negatives to point towards the outside. So that means flat sides towards the center on both sides. So we're gonna stick this battery in here like that. Come on, go in there. There. So I got it started with the flat side towards the center. We push it all the way in. And the same thing with this one. Flat side towards the center. Nib towards the outside. Like that. Now, I will say this. These were very tight to push in. And I feel like this little battery removal tool is very flimsy to push them back out. So I almost feel like this is like almost like one-time use. Because I feel like it's going to be a struggle to get these batteries out using this tool. I'm just going to try it. Just for a little... I feel like the hole's not even the right size for these things. But let's see what happens here. If I can get it in. Okay. No. I don't see that happening at all. This might be a one-time use. Or you might need some better tool like a pin or needle or something. Because this thing that came with it... No. They are not coming out using this tool. So I think that this tool that it came with might be kind of useless. We'll have to figure out some other solution to getting these out. So anyway, the next step is then we take our little plate. Now, this plate is one-sided, meaning it's different each side. You don't just stick it on there. You have to look at what you're doing. And one side of this plate has a little cutout where the switch will live. This side's completely flat. This side has like a little recess where that little switch will live. So make sure you put that little recess down towards where the switch is. Line it all up where the little pins are, because there's 2 pins and the 1 pin we talked about earlier. Snap that in, and there you go. It is now finished and completed. Now to get it to turn on, you have to actually, you can't even, I tried squeezing it with my fingers, it will not put enough pressure. You actually need to put this on the quad, tighten down the nut, and it'll turn it on. So let's do that right now. I have my HGLRC Mark IV over here that we're going to put these on. Put this here right now. Doesn't even want to slip on very easily. Like literally everything on this prop right now is like super tight. Like it won't even slip down onto the shaft. I don't know if that's just to make it, it's making all sorts of weird noises, but I think that's just the plastic on the inside. All right, we're gonna put our motor nut down on top of that. Move it so the light is on the top here. And now I'm gonna tighten down this nut, and hopefully, as I tighten it down, we'll see it light up once it gets tight. There we go. Now we're on. It's that easy. And then to turn it off, Just loosen it a little bit, and that turns it off. So that's how you turn them on and off. Now for comparison, let me unzoom a little bit here. For comparison, on this side, I've put the Energizer battery. I've already done one ahead of time. So now on this side, we're gonna put the PK cell. So let me make a little tag for that one. I'll call it P. So we know that this side is our PK cell when we go to do the comparison to see the length of time, how long they last for both of these batteries. Now, one thing to note that I do want to mention is that these two batteries that I am recommending, these are the cheapest ones. They are the LR521 size. The Energizer that we're using is the 379 size. So they are slightly different sized batteries and they are slightly different weighted batteries. However, these were much cheaper and these are a little bit more expensive. And that's what I was able to find on Amazon. So that's why these are a much snugger fit putting them in. These were a little bit easier to get in, but not by much. All right, let me just move this up a little bit so that it's in frame. And get my timer in frame here. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I got this all situated here now. I got my timer set up. We got the Energizer here on this side. We have the PK cell on that side. And we're gonna do a little comparison to see really what kind of battery life can we expect out of these props, as well how long they last compared to each other. But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna adjust the lights here a little bit so that we can see the LEDs a little bit better, and then we'll start our test. We have, my lights are adjusted. I'm actually gonna turn the lights you do see on down even more, but I wanted to just get a situation to see what's up. Remember, we have the PK cell over here. We have the Energizer over here. We have our timer here. So let's turn these on and start the timer. One's on. One's on, and start. And now we wait. As the time lapse progresses here, you can see that the Energizer side does stay pretty bright and the PK cell side does start to fade. And it's around the 22-23 minute mark that we can start to see the PK side cell. We can't see the mat anymore. It's really just the blade is illuminated, but it's not actually projecting any light onto the mat. While the Energizer side is still very bright, we can still see the mat below the quad. And this should come as no surprise because the Energizer battery is the brand name, and typically with the more expensive batteries, you do get a little higher energy density. Then as we progress, we get to around the 1 hour mark. And this is when we start to just see the PK cell now starting to lose brightness to where the little dots or the little reflective parts of the blade start to like fade, like the edges start to get a little bit more dimmer, and we are still seeing the Energizer. We're still illuminating the mat below. And by the 2 hour mark, we can see the Energizer is still going pretty darn strong. The PK cell now, we're almost barely lit. We're just seeing a few of the, the dots. I mean, granted, if this is in the air and flying, you would still see light, but obviously it is much dimmer than the Energizer battery is performing. At 3 hours and 40 minutes, we've gotten to the point now where the Energizer side dimmed down enough that we're not seeing the mat behind the quad, but the blade is still pretty bright. The PK cell side is almost gone at this point. At the 4 hour mark, we've pretty much lost the PK cell. I mean, you can see the LED is still illuminated, but it's not bright enough to really even make the blade light up. While the Energizer cell kind of dimmed down to a certain point and it just kind of sits there. And it actually sits there all the way through till we get to about a little bit over 5 hours worth of time. Now you'd think this is where the story ends, but it doesn't. Because actually when you stress a battery like this, where you just turn it on and you leave it on and you don't give it like time to turn on and off and rest in between, batteries can have almost like a rebound effect where after you turn them off and you let them rest for a little while, they'll actually gain some voltage back so that you can use them, again. And this doesn't really represent a true use of these batteries, because you're not going to turn these on and leave them on for 5 hours straight. You're going to turn them on and use them for a little while, and then when you're done with your flight, maybe 3 minutes, unless you're flying a couple packs in a row, but typically you're only going to use it for short bursts of time. So I figured I wanted to see what would happen then if I turn them off, let them rest overnight, and see what happened the next day. Now on day 2, as you can see, I've let them rest overnight, and in the morning I got up, turned everything back on, and you can see there has been some rebound. The Energizer side here is much brighter again. You can now see the mat behind the quad again. And on the PK cell side even, the blades are lit up. I mean, we're just seeing ever so slightly the hint of the background appearing, but they're definitely dimmer than the Energizer cell. But now what is really, really surprising was that quickly, you know, relatively speaking in time-lapse terms, somewhere around the 6 hour and 30-minute mark to around the 7 hour mark, the Energizer cell quickly drops and kind of drops into a tie with the PK cell, and the two of them just kind of sit at that same brightness, and then they start to both kind of fade off with, in my opinion, the PK cell being the front runner now, all the way through till we get to, you know, around 11 hours, 11 and a half hours, which is kind of crazy that the Energizer cell drops off so abruptly, and then the PK cell seems to have a little bit more life in it after the stress test. But I wasn't finished there. I wanted to know what would happen after one more resting period. So on day 3, we have our rested batteries. They rested again overnight, and I turned everything on, and again we had some rebound, and the Energizer again is very bright, lighting up the mat. Not as bright as it was the previous 2 times, but still lighting up the mat, which is more than we can say for the PK cell. But as you can see, very quickly, within 45 minutes to an hour, around the 13-hour mark, they're almost neck and neck tied, and that's when they just kind of all fade into the nothingness, which is at around, you know, 18 hours. And I decided at this point, I would call this very much dead. Now, let's talk about this. So before I start giving you my thoughts on these props, or, you know, doing any kind of price comparison between the Energizer or the PK cell batteries, I do want to address, how do you take these apart? How do you change the batteries in these? Because now I have these props with all these batteries in them that are now dead and need to come out. And there are some issues and some concerns that I have, so we'll explore that together. The first concern is the tool that I'm given, essentially the SIM card removal tool. And we have it here. And to show, here's a prop that has nothing in it. It's not loaded with anything. You can see there's no LEDs, there's no batteries, there's no nothing. And if I try to put this into the little hole, which is the bottom, here's the bottom. If I try to put this into the hole where the battery compartment is, it just stabs in and does not penetrate through. I maybe could force it in, but you can see it's taking me a lot of force just to get it to stick into that hole. And it's not like it's attached. So it's not the correct sized hole for this tool. So they should have either made the tool smaller or the hole bigger. So I'm very leery of even trying to use the tool that it came with. Second option I found was this safety pin. Now, granted, I don't want to be stabbing into a battery with a pointy pin, so I actually took a little bit of very fine grit sandpaper and sanded down the point here. So there's no actual point on this anymore. It's just the pin part. And this actually does fit into the little holes that are on these props. As you can see, it easily penetrates through and goes through these holes. So this would be the appropriate sized tool for these holes. However, again, this is such a tiny pin that I'm sticking in there, and especially with the PK cell batteries, they were very snug to get into there, and I'm a little leery of pushing on them with such a small thing. So as an experiment also, we will be going to the Makita, and I have a 1/16 inch bit. It's the smallest drill bit that my kit has in it. And I'll put it here so you can see it's relatively small, but compared to the pin, you know, it's obviously a lot larger. Here's it next to the pin. So you can see it's bigger than the pin, but not by much. But I feel like this is at least something substantial to push on these batteries to get them to come out of their little holders. Now with the Energizer, I'm not as concerned because the Energizer were kind of easy to slip in. They were maybe a little bit thinner, and the PK cell ones are a little bit thicker. So those are the ones I think that may give us the issue. So my plan is I'm gonna try, I know the tool doesn't work because I've already tried it. So my next bet is I'm gonna try with the safety pin trick. And if that doesn't work, then I'm gonna very carefully drill out the hole, not drill into the battery, but just drill out the plastic of the hole and then push with the drill bit to push it out. And for future, I will be then drilling out those holes on the empty props so that they're just ready to go. So I can just use a 1/16 inch rod or the drill bit itself just to push the batteries out, because I have a lot of these batteries now. So let's try that first. So here we go with the Energizer cell batteries. Now, first and foremost, it does have this little cap on the top here, so you do need to remove that cap. Now you have the two batteries in here. Now I'm gonna try to use the tool it came with. Now these are the Energizer cell ones. They were a little bit easier to insert, so they may come out a little easier, but I still have to, the tool doesn't really fit through this hole. Okay, kind of worked and kind of pushed out, but it's not a happy experience to me. Like that hole needs to be a little bit bigger, but I was able to get that battery out. Let's try again on the other side for the other one. And I push. Okay, kind of again works, but the friction I'm feeling is not pushing the battery out. The friction I'm feeling is the hole being the wrong size for this tool. So that's taking the batteries out. Now what I would recommend, unless you're gonna put new batteries in there, I would take your little plate and I would just snap that back on, because you don't want those little copper plates that we inserted earlier to pop back out. So that's what I'm gonna do. When there's no battery in there, I'm still gonna put that little dealio on there. Here is the PK cell one. Now I already know earlier, I tried using this tool and it would not work, because between the cells being too tight and the hole being too small, it just wouldn't work. So I'm not even gonna bother trying that. I will take off the little cap here, and we will try my safety pin idea first. But I wanna be very careful, because again, like I said, I don't wanna pierce these cells here. But it does go into the hole easily, and instead of trying to put, well, I'll try it with my hand first pushing and see what happens. No, it's hurting my thumb. So I'm gonna try, let me put it on something hard. All right, so what I did, I just went and got myself a pretty hefty duty metal ruler here, because when I'm gonna push down on my table here, and I don't wanna damage or dent my, my mat here. So I'm just gonna try to hold everything together and push down, not stab myself with the pin. I'm gonna keep my fingers out of that way of that area, because if it goes, I don't want that pin to stab me or anything. Now we're just gonna push down and see what happens, if I can work this properly. Okay, what's actually happening is I'm bending the safety pin. As you see, the safety pin bent. So let's try rescue method number 3. And that is, we're bringing in the Makita. And I'm just gonna drill out this hole ever so slightly. I don't want to drill into the battery like I mentioned. Oh, going the wrong way. Okay, I think I'm through the plastic. I'm gonna do it like this. Set it down like that. I'm gonna make it so the drill bit's all the way in as most as possible, because I don't want to have it bending. Although drill bits really shouldn't ever bend. If anything, they should break if they're a good drill bit. But I made it so that there's just a little tiny amount sticking out, so there's really no room for it to bend. It's really just pressure. Line it up. And now we try pushing. There. That actually worked like a charm. That was no big deal at all. So I'll just drill out this other hole. And now we'll pop this one out. Okay. Go, and then we push down. There. And out comes that battery. So basically, if you're going to use the Energizer batteries, I would say that you're pretty okay. You can get away with this tool. It will function somewhat. It will be more difficult than it needs to be to get it out, but it will get it out. If you plan on using the PK cell ones, however, you're going to want to drill out the rest of your hole. So I'm going to do that right now on all of my props. So it's super easy. Just line up the hole, slowly drill right through till you go through, and then pull it out. Same thing on the other side. Just drill and pull it out. You're taking off so little amount of plastic. I don't see that damaging or working or screwing with anything, especially being so close to the hub. I mean, and let's be honest, if it does throw off the balance of the prop a little bit, you got batteries and copper and LEDs and I mean, you're clearly not worried about performance when you're trying to use these. Now that we finally got those batteries out of my props, and I have to tell you, I'm very impressed with my 1/16 inch drill bit method. I think that that's definitely the way to go because this little tool that it comes with just does not work out well. It's too big for the hole that's there, and it's too much. You're putting too much force on such a small thing. The Energizer batteries were easy to come out. The PK cell ones were really tight. And I just feel like overall having the hole just a smidge bigger at 1/16 inch is not going to affect anything, but it will make taking whatever battery you stick into here that much easier to remove. So that's what I'm going to stick with. And for every pack of these Moonlights that I ever get in the future, I will always be drilling out those holes. But that's just my thing. You can do as you please. Now, with that being said, let's do a little bit of a comparison between the Energizer and the PK cell batteries so that you can make an educated decision of what batteries you're going to put into your Moonlight prop. So let's take a look at that now. Now you can see here, the first line is basically how many come in a pack. So with the Energizers, you got 15. With the PK cell, you got 100. As far as prices go, at the time of the filming, I paid $8.60 for the Energizer, and I spent $11.99 to buy the PK Cell brand, which, if you do a little bit of math, boils down to 50 cents per battery for Energizer or 12 cents per battery for PK Cell. Now, I also did a little bit of extra math because each prop requires 2 batteries, so I did the math for how much does it cost to put batteries into a prop, and then I did the math for how much does it cost to put the 4 props onto your quad for the batteries. So with the Energizer, we're looking at $4.59 versus 96 cents. So it is a big price difference. So for cost ratio, it works out to be a 1 to 4.8 ratio, meaning for every 1 cell of Energizer, you get 4.8 cells of the PK Cell brand ones. So there's a lot of value there as far as quantity goes. However, we saw in the time lapse that the Energizer performed much better and lasted much longer. Which is not surprising because usually when it comes to batteries, the brand name batteries have a much higher voltage density where essentially they will stay at a high voltage and then drop, while a cheaper battery will kind of be up top and then they go, but then they'll kind of just hover down low the whole time. And that's sort of what these batteries did. They performed pretty much as expected. So I wanted to know, taking that into consideration, how much light time or flight time on these props would we get? So what I used as a gauge was when you couldn't see the table anymore, when the mat that the quad was sitting on was not illuminated anymore. And the Energizer batteries lasted 9.5 times longer than the PK Cell brand lasted. Which, by the way, full disclaimer, the light in real life versus the light in the video footage for the time lapse, very different. In real life, they are much, much brighter. But because of the studio setup and because of my camera setups, everything is kind of dimmed down a little bit so that it didn't look all, when you try to film at nighttime, you get all that sparkly stuff and everything. So I have it set up so that I don't get that, but it also means that everything is then darker. So in real life, they are much brighter. So don't let that sway you thinking, oh, that's as bright as it gets. No, it's actually really much more bright in real life. That being said, the Energizer did last 9.5 times more time-wise for that nice, robust, bright experience. So when you squish those two sets of numbers together, it actually turns out that the Energizer battery is sort of 2-to-1 to the PK cell. So even though it costs more, and even though you get less, because each individual cell lasts longer and stays brighter longer than the PK cell, it becomes the better value. Now, remember, after my real intense stress test, after like 3 days of being constantly on, there was a point where the Energizer was behind the PK cell as far as brightness goes. So that's like a diminishing return kind of thing. So I'm going to leave it up to you to decide which is best for you. But one other thing I did notice, which is what I like to call the hot dog and the bun problem, is that to set up the quad, you need 8 batteries. However, the Energizers come in sets of 15, the PK cell comes in sets of 100, neither of which are divisible evenly by 8. So I was kind of curious, how many would you have to buy of these sets to have a nice, even, perfect number so you had the right number of batteries for full sets of your quad, which would be 8 batteries? And you know, if you actually care, here's your answer. It's 8 packs of the 15 Energizer cells or 2 packs of the 100 PK cells. And I also included how much that would cost to buy those and how many actual total cells you would have that would divide out evenly. You probably don't care about that information, but I just kind of saw one of those hot dog and bun problems that I was just curious what the actual answer would be. Now, lastly, I just want to talk about these props in general, as far as their design, as far as what they do, and all that fun stuff. And I have to say, honestly, I think these are pretty darn cool. The fact that you can put the LEDs, I mean, I'm all about putting LEDs on anything I can put an LED on. So that alone is something, it's like a no-brainer for me. Number 2 is they lasted way longer than I anticipated them lasting, because when you look at the size of these batteries and you look at the size of this, you're like, how long can that possibly last? And I honestly thought it was going to last maybe a half an hour tops and then it'd be dead. I didn't think that I would have a time lapse of 18 hours and still have them somewhat like illuminated, which I thought to be completely bonkers. I'm impressed with how long they last. However, obviously, like I said, there's diminishing returns. The brightness does fade. For that initial like wow factor where it's like the brightest it's going to be and that initial like oomph, you're really looking for the PK cell. It's roughly about like half an hour, maybe 45 minutes tops. And for the Energizer, you're looking at maybe like around 3 hours of actual time before they like start to diminish. Now, obviously, like I said, turning them on, turning them off, turning them on, turning them off, that will prolong that amount of time. You're not just running it constant because you will have some rebound. So I'm very impressed with how long they last, regardless of which battery you put into it. And that was the whole point of this, was just the experiment between these two different batteries, which is right for you, which is right for your budget, which is right for what you're trying to do, and then just to see the process, because to put these together is very tedious. Once they're put together, though, you're good, because it's just popping the batteries out and putting new ones in, but that in itself is also tedious. And if you crash and you break one, now you kind of you can take it apart and take the guts out, and I think you can buy the props without the LED component, just the actual plastic part for cheaper, so you can move the LEDs over, I think. I'll confirm that. And the props themselves are expensive compared to regular props, and then you have to pay for the batteries, which are expensive compared to not having to buy batteries. But let's face it, if you're putting LEDs on your quad to show off and to be like, hey, cool, look at this up in the sky, you really couldn't do that easily prior. You could put LEDs on the outside of your quad, but it really wasn't lighting up the prop discs, if you will. So I think that's a pretty cool innovation, if you will. So definitely excited about them. I'm going to have to give them some testing, some actual flight characteristics, some thrust tests, and see how that goes. We'll see how they perform, but overall, I am pretty darn happy with the experience of putting them together, lighting them up, and I'm impressed with how long they last. All right, so as always, my name's Tronage. Fly strong.